Oh, hello there. I'm just touching up on some remains. It's a rather tedious job. While I finish up with this, there's a story of a boy and his mother, and how the relationship later spawned a serial of modern takes in horror films. Let's cut our teeth on this episode of Psycho Stories, The Butcher of Plainfield. Rural Wisconsin, a picturesque cutout of America. Halfway between Minneapolis and Milwaukee, and about 30 minutes outside of Stevens Point, lies the small town of Plainfield. Remote, off the highway, sprawling fields and farms. You generally knew everybody, or at least you knew of everybody in the area. In 1915, Augusta and George Gein moved their two sons, Henry and Ed, to a farm outside of town. The matriarch of the family, Augusta, a woman of religious fervor, ruled over the household with puritanical preachings about the sins of lust and carnal desire. Women, she believed, apart from herself, were instruments of the devil. Ed and Henry were browbeaten by their tyrannical mother on the immorality of sex and how it should be avoided at all costs. This was an environment at early childhood development that languished in deep psychological trauma, as their mother was determined to keep the outside world at bay. For Ed Gein, her efforts became deeply planted in his psyche. As years went by, Ed became more doting of his mother in every way. He rarely left the house, waited on her hand and foot, and never dated women. Their father died in 1940, leading the two boys, now into their 30s, to do odd jobs in order to take care of the farm and support their mother. In 1944, while taking care of a brush fire on the farm, it quickly became out of control. As the story goes, Henry was believed to have lost his life due to asphyxiation from the fire. However, as the events unfolded in later years with Ed, the circumstances surrounding his brother's death became suspect. During the years after the fire, Ed's obsession for his mother and his repudiation of the outside world grew, because in 1945, Augusta died of a stroke.
No. Well, I run the office and tend the cabins and grounds and do little errands for my mother. The ones she allows I might be capable of doing.
Do you go out with friends?
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Gein locked off parts of the house that were occupied by his mother, leaving them as a shrine, or actually more of a tomb. Those feelings of perceived hostility and sexual repression in his unusual attachment to his mother were kept in check while she was alive. For over 10 years, by day he was a handyman, working odd jobs for people in the area. By night, a grave robber. Later that year, he stole his mother's corpse from the cemetery in an attempt at making a substitute or replica that could be kept indefinitely. When that wasn't enough, his perversion spread to exhuming many other women's bodies in order to manifest his sexual desires and love for his mother. Gein learned the skills of tanning animal hides from his father and started applying those skills to the countless bodies over the years. The fantasies turned into treasures. Household goods that you and I use every day became macabre instruments of delusion. Spoons, bowls, lampshades, chairs, clothing were taken from their mundane application and given a makeover with the skin and bones of his victims. But in order to satisfy these desires, after a while he could not complete his suit without fresh flesh. In the final years leading up to his arrest, a few residents had gone missing or mysteriously disappeared. Among them was Mary Hogan, a tavern owner where Gein frequented. Although the locals knew of the estranged man, it wasn't until November of 1957 when his most heinous act had been his downfall.
Look, if you two are in this thing together, I don't care. It's none of my business. But I want to talk to Marion, and I want her to tell me it's none of my business, and then I'll go.
Bob, run out and get yourself some lunch, will you?
That's okay, Sam. I brought it with me.
Run out and eat it.
Bernice Warden, a local hardware store owner, was reported missing. The cash register was also missing, and a trail of blood led out back to her missing truck. Her son Frank, a deputy sheriff, had his suspicions. Living in a small rural area, you tend to know everybody, or at least know of everybody. The reclusive man was picked up at the neighbor's house when he was spotted driving her truck. Afterwards, the gruesome scene authorities found at Ed Gein's house was the stuff of nightmares and movies. The normal practice of skinning and dismembering a deer had been applied to the body hanging from the ankles in the parlor. Ultimately, he was found guilty of her murder, but also found to be insane and was never released or put to his own death. He died in 1984 in a mental institute, having only claimed to killing the two women, even though authorities suspected him of more due to the disappearances and amount of bodies found on the property. Sound like an inspiring story? That's because it is. This is where art imitates life. The story of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho was also a book of the same name written by Robert Bloch. Bloch lived not more than 50 miles from Plainfield and based a large part of the story of Norman Bates and his deranged love for his mother on Gein. Bloch and Hitchcock set the standard for the horror genre as the story makes front and center the psychology and reasoning of the killer, drawing inspiration from the work of Sigmund Freud. Hitchcock often used this technique in his films as the visual medium provides a guttural reaction in an audience when faced with the internal struggle of the characters played out on the screen. Where else have we seen this story of dissociative identity disorder play out in one way or another in the movie world? Some of my dreadful favorites are probably yours as well.
Are they?
The Silence of the Lambs villain, Buffalo Bill, is a direct reference to Ed Gein with the psychological terror aspect played out by Anthony Hopkins' character, Dr. Hannibal Lecter.
Good morning.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre has its notorious villain, Leatherface. The first Friday the 13th uses the same characters as Psycho, but reverses the roles of mother and son. Brian De Palma utilizes these characters as mother and daughter in Carrie. Also, Otis B. Driftwood's skin-wearing Psycho in Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, and don't forget Mommy Dearest.
I told you, no wire hangers ever!
Okay, not exactly a horror film, but Faye Dunaway's portrayal is enough to send chills down your spine. What's your favorite spine tingler? Let me know in the comments. The reality is, as an audience, we have an affinity for terror and a disbelief that it is reality. Picture this. Perhaps your neighbor down the street, or your co-worker, or even the handyman you let into your house because he has a 5-star rating as a secret you'd rather not believe is the reality. If you dare to think about it a little more, their smile was a bit off, and their eyes a little too penetrating. Or maybe it's all in your mind. They're gonna make a killer smile. If you like meh, you want to love meh, so enjoy meh, right meh? Ow. We truly enjoy making content for you, so if you find this interesting and intriguing, click the like button, support us any way you can, check us out on Patreon. If there's more from the Psycho story world you want to hear, just let us know, drop us a line. Please stay tuned, we got a lot more coming up from meh. From Minerva and myself, please take care of yourself and each other.